gentlemen, coming to you from the Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This is the Spit Sports Show. Guys, I am in such a good mood for this episode today. You know why? Because from now until February, there is an NFL game on every single week. Now, you might say you must be a sicko if you're going to watch the Chicago Bears third stringers against the Houston Texans fourth stringers. Well, then I'm a sicko because I loved just teams being on a football field and seeing the new kickoff and seeing that yellow line for a first down. It really just sparked up the football loving fan in me because it is my favorite sport to watch and analyze. And with that, I thought it was the perfect time to take a look into the future NFL season, more specifically, futures bets, because it feels like this year, more than any NFL season that I can remember, there's a lot of uncertainty going into this season. Outside of that team in Kansas City, we don't really know how a lot of these teams are going to look. There's been a lot of changes. In the AFC specifically, the Bills got significantly worse, losing Diggs, hopefully regaining some defensive pieces. We'll see what they do. The Bengals, is Joe Burrow going to be able to stay healthy? Baltimore, is Lamar a playoff quarterback at all? Or is he just a regular season phenom? In the NFC, it feels wide open outside of the San Francisco 49ers, who we don't know what their roster is going to look like week one, with two of their five all-pro level players in contract disputes. You also have the Packers, who are unproven but talented. The Bears with a future phenom who might rise up. This is one of the most interesting starts to a season in terms of speculation and what different teams are going to do in a very long time. And what that's done is it has made for some very interesting betting lines in terms of how many games each team is going to win. And I think it's made it so it's easier to bet these futures than ever before. Now, I have 12 bets for you guys sorted into three different categories. Obviously, the right side, top tier bets, and free money. And you should stick around for these free money bets because when I saw these two lines, I genuinely could not believe my eyes. I thought it was a typo, refreshed the page a couple of times, but nope, they were the actual lines that you were able to bet real money on. And the first line that is in my obviously the right side is the Patriots under 4.5. Now, 4.5 is not a big number whatsoever, but the Patriots, I don't think, have the talent to win 5 games, even in the best case scenario. It seems like their first round quarterback, Drake May, has been, to put it bluntly, a bit of a disaster in camp so far. 6th round pick, Joe Milton. They drafted 2 quarterbacks. Seems like he's getting a lot more buzz. He has a bit more arm talent, a bit more juice. They have no weapons to surround either of those quarterbacks, though. Even if they do excel in training camp, they really don't have any significant weapon. I think the best guy they have is a wide receiver 3 in Kendrick Bourne. Their defense, I can no longer count on to be a top 10 unit every year just off of Belichick's greatness because Belichick isn't there anymore. It's a totally new coach in Jerome Mayo. I don't know how he's going to look. I think the Patriots are completely devoid of offensive talent. I don't see how they possibly win 5 games this season. I have them under the 4.5. Another team that I have under, which is still at a low number, is the Raiders. Now, their line is at 6.5 games. And to be honest with you, I can't understand why it would be that high, considering I really don't like anything about the Raiders organization other than 3 people. Devontae Adams, Max Crosby, and I think Antonio Pierce did some really good things last season as the head coach. But when I look up and down what the Raiders are actually putting on the field this season, their quarterback situation is a mess. I know Devontae wants to start gassing up Aiden O'Connell like he's going to be anything but one of the worst starters in the league, but that's what he is. Their defense is pretty much a joke, especially in the secondary. They struggle to generate any pressure outside of Max Crosby, and their O-line is bottom 10 in the league. Outside of Crosby and smart blitzes, they really don't get much pressure at all. I think losing Amik Robertson is a bigger deal than most people think. Raiders winning 7 games just feels like a total stretch to me. I am hammering the under there. That is obviously the right side. Talking about obviously the right side, listen, this one breaks my heart, but as a Lions fan, but I have to be honest. All I owe you guys is my honest opinion. The Bears over 8.5 is a solid, solid bet. Now, although I do think that their defense is slightly overrated, it did look fantastic when they added Montez Sweat last year, who led two different teams in sacks last year. He led the Commanders and the Bears, something that's never been done before. Caleb Williams is obviously a generational prospect. He's the Andrew Luck level of first overall picks, and he isn't going to a first overall pick level roster like Bryce Young was last year. The Bears have set themselves up very good to have Caleb succeed. DJ Moore is fantastic. I think Roma Dunze is a great pick. Cole Kmet is a terrifying young tight end for them. Now, their O line is kind of been glossed over, but it is shaky, especially in the interior. But overall, they have a pretty easy schedule early, which I think will be huge for the confidence of that young roster and that young quarterback. And I really only see them continuing to roll from there. I think 9 wins is on the low end of what they can pull off. I'm expecting anywhere from 9 to 11 wins for the Chicago Bears. So 8.5, I think, is a pretty good number for them. Cowboys is my next bet, and I'm hammering them at under 9.5 wins. Now, listen, I didn't like the Cowboys roster last year going into the season, and I looked wrong about that until the playoffs hit, where all of their roster flaws were exposed in one foul swoop by a Green Bay roster that is just infinitely better all around than they are. And the Cowboys are coming into the season coming off one of the worst off seasons in the league, if not the worst. I think they are an incredibly flawed top heavy roster. I don't know who their second option is at receiver. They seem to not have a running back outside of a 57-year-old Ezekiel Elliott, and that's about it. Dan Quinn is gone as the DC, middle of the pack to below average offensive line nowadays. Dak Prescott's a very good quarterback, not a great one. And like I said, there's a lot of superstars on the roster, but the pieces that fill around it just aren't good enough. And they haven't been for a long time, and they weren't able to improve at all. This feels like an 8-9 win team to me. And I would not be surprised at all if they miss the playoffs. I know they're the Dallas Cowboys. I understand that brand, but when you actually take a look at the roster, there's not much to get excited about, unfortunately, if you're a Dallas fan. The Ravens line at 10.5, you've got to hammer the over on that. That's obviously the right side. Lamar is one of, if not the best regular season quarterback ever, just behind Peyton Manning. Derrick Henry, sneaky, adds a power element to the running game, which the Ravens have lacked the past 5 years, especially these years with Lamar. They've always kind of had speedsters. You had Keaton Mitchell last year for them, J.K. Dobbins. These guys are all people who are trying to break off big runs and not necessarily run between the tackles for that extra two. Derrick Henry is going to do that. A good Ravens defense just kind of seems inevitable to me at this point. It seems like they just have a good one every single year under Harbaugh. I know they have a new DC, but I really see no reason why they don't win at least 11 games. Lamar is the same offensive personnel as he had last year when he won MVP, and he just added a Hall of Fame running back. It's hard not to really like the Ravens here. 49ers under 11.5 is obviously the right side here. We don't, like I mentioned, we don't know what's happening with Ayuk and Trent. I assume they both play week one. I definitely am more confident in Trent playing week one than Ayuk. But what we've seen is when you take a few of those weapons away from Purdy, he looks quite average. 11.5 is a huge number. That's a big number. Second highest, or tied for the highest, I should say, with the Chiefs in terms of lines. And we've already seen the 49ers have a bit of a Super Bowl hangover the last time they lost to Mahomes. They went 10-7 and came third in their division the year after they lost the Super Bowl. So seeing them drop a couple games here and there, especially early in the season when the team isn't fully coherent, is a very likely scenario, in my opinion. 12 wins is a lot for a team every single year. I think obviously the right side is under on the 49ers. Now, we get into the next category, which are our top tier bets. Now, these are ones that absolutely you should be hammering on, a couple units wager for sure. And the first one of those is the Jets under 9.5. I don't know who came up with this line, but listen, as a general rule, I don't really like when teams make a lot of offseason noise. It makes it seem that there isn't a lot of coherency or communication going around, and you're doing a lot of jabs through the media. I really don't like when those jabs and subtle shots through the media are going through your head coach and quarterback, which is arguably the most important relationship on the team. I also have a general rule where if I don't think your quarterback and head coach are good individually, I don't think your team is going to be particularly successful. And I have no reason to believe Aaron Rodgers is going to be even close to what he was in his prime, coming off A, his worst season of his career, and B, a ruptured Achilles tendon. I have no reason to believe that. I don't really believe in Bob Saleh as a head coach. I think he does his thing as a defensive coordinator. Nathaniel Hackett is obviously a disaster at OC. They spent the offseason trying to get someone to babysit him. Rodgers likes him because he's his guy. Right now, I just don't like anything really about the Jets. They have a lot of talent, but under the surface, there's a lot of issues. And when they start dropping a couple games, 3-game losing streak on the road, or when adversity hits, I question how they're going to respond to that, especially with their quarterback being as flaky in under pressure situations as he has been. Texans over 9.5. What a bet this is. I was expecting their line to be at 10.5 for sure, especially with the hype they have coming into this season, and it's hard not to like them. CJ Stroud is obviously the main reason for this, coming off of the greatest rookie season for a quarterback we've ever seen. I think their head coach is a home run. I think he's a difference maker on the defensive side of the ball. I thought the Texans were a little bit devoid of talent, to be honest with you, on the defensive side of the ball last year, outside of a couple secondary pieces. And they still looked like a force to be dealt with at the end of the season on that side of the ball. Stephon Diggs, for all of his extracurricular activity, that stuff never happens in his first couple years with the team. It usually happens later. But first couple years, I expect Stephon to be on his best behavior. I think Tank Dell and Nico Collins are both just, premium wide receiver 2 and 3, more like wide receiver 2s. I like Dalton Schultz a lot more than probably anybody else does. The guy always just seems to be making plays. So, and they kept their OC, so they have continuity. Really, no reason at all why the Texans don't win 10 games this year. I don't see it happening. Lions over 10.5. Listen, I don't care if I'm a fan of this team. I don't care if I'm not a fan. If I was a Packers fan, I'd bet on the Lions going over 10.5 wins. They won 12 games last year with the 5th youngest roster in the league. And all they've done is gotten better. They're bringing back the exact same offense that was 5th in the league last year. All they did was add a better left guard than what they had last year, replacing Jonah Jackson. And I think what it is with the Lions is, because they've been so atrocious for so long, everyone kind of has in the back of their mind, oh, yeah, that was a cute season for them, like good for them, but they're not going to be able to keep that up, right? It's the Lions at the end of the day. But I'm telling you, this roster is legit. New revamped secondary. Their pass rush seems to be tremendously improved with the addition of DJ Reader. And Levi Awarzier, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, has been a dog so far in camp out of all reports. There is no reason the Lions don't win at least 11 games. I don't see it happening. It's not possible. Well, it's obviously possible. Injuries happen, but in general, how can you bet the under on 10.5 with the Lions? And I don't understand how you can bet over 10.5 when it comes to the Eagles. This is such a no-brainer for me. The Eagles' collapse last year was it was unlike anything I've ever seen out of a genuine Super Bowl contender, culminating in the only playoff game I've ever seen where the team flatly quit after the first couple of drives. It looked like they didn't want to be there. It looked like they wanted to be at home in their beds watching receiver instead of being on the field impacting football plays. Jason Kelsey and Hassan Reddick both gone. Not ideal at all. And I have real questions about maybe the two most important people in the organization. First of all, Nick Sirianni, I am straight up not a fan. I think he's got more of a player's personality than a coach's personality, rubbing it in fans' faces and doing obscene gestures to referee. Like, I'm just not a fan of his braggadocious attitude, especially when you place him with a quarterback that's as calm and personable as Jalen Hurts is. I don't feel like that connects. And speaking of Jalen Hurts, are we sure he is a franchise quarterback? I'm just saying he had a rough time at Alabama, questionable time at Oklahoma at the end, a rough first year in Philly, unbelievable second year, just top tier stuff, and then another bad year. I don't know exactly what he is. I don't think the Eagles have gotten any better since last season. Eagles under 10.5. If they win 10 games, I win the bet. Yeah, no doubt about it. We take that. And now, finally, my 2 free money bets. I could not believe these lines. They boggled my mind. My eyes popped out of my head. I placed at least 4 units on these as soon as I saw these numbers. Packers over 9.5. Duh. This makes me sick to my stomach. I hope the Packers take a massive step back and that Jordan Love is just a 8-game fluke as a Lions fan, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they won 9 games last year after starting 3-7. They were the youngest team to ever win a playoff game. They have unbelievable momentum coming into the season. By all reports, Jordan Love is taking yet another step in camp with his leadership and accuracy. I love what he's doing both tangibly and intangibly. Overall, their defense is a top 10 unit. I like their weapons a lot. Christian Watson, when he's not hamstringed, he's got a lot of talent. Romeo Doubs, I expect to take another step. There's a lot of pieces that I just love on the Packers, and them winning 10 games seems inevitable to me. And the single best bet that Vegas maybe has ever put out, could not believe it, is the Rams at 8.5. Guys, how do they not win at least 9 games this year? They won 10 last year in a season where they were relying primarily on rookies on every spot of their roster for the start of the season, and all of the rookies turned into ballers. The offense was without Cooper Kupp for the first 5 weeks of the season, and Puka Nacua somehow turned into the greatest rookie wide receiver of all time, stats-wise. I don't think he was better than Justin Jefferson, but the stats said he did. The rookie running back, Kyron Williams, looks unbelievable. They've got a revamped secondary. Now, their secondary is incredibly young, and obviously losing Aaron Donald is a big deal. But Kobe Turner actually led them in sacks last year, and he came on really strong. No reason the Rams don't win at least 10 games. Stafford, to me, is still in that tier 2 of quarterbacks. To me, Mahomes is in his own tier, and then you have another tier of, Josh Allen, Lamar. I have Stafford in that tier. McVay is obviously one of the best coaches in the world, offensive guru. There is no reason the Rams don't win at least 9 games. Seems like free money to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I want to know, am I insane? Which of these picks do you agree with and disagree with? Let me know in the comments below. I am small enough as to where I can respond to all comments and love doing so. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed what you heard. Please subscribe. Spit Sports Show just hit over 350 subscribers. Big stuff happening on the channel. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Peace out.